Rift. It was banned 100% of the time yesterday on our first matches of 12-14, so we'll see if the priority has slipped down a bit, or if WE still look to pick it up, but it looks like instead they will go for that Wukong with the Poppy banned away. Definitely up there in terms of jungle priority.
Yeah, definitely still something that you could work well with your team. And of course, we do have View in today instead of Beishong, so very good. Wow, Viper straight away saying, I do not care what you pick. And a Pantheon for the second day in a row. Kill lanes in the bot lane, but Pantheon is making a resurgence in the LPL with the changes.
Yeah, so for anyone who's unclear on what the changes were, they literally just buffed his Q damage to monsters to help his jungle clear, get him to the point where he's playable, obviously super strong early ganker. This could, in theory, be flexed. We can see, you know, Pantheon go into the support role, but, you know, I would assume it's jungle, but we'll wait and see when it comes to that one. WE, you know, they have to respond to this. They are going to go for the Gwen in the top lane, something that does scale pretty exceptionally. And now the question is going to be, will they try and answer this Draven now, or leave it until the second rotate, until after the second rotation of bans?
Yeah, and of course, this is just kind of a... Pantheon has kind of found himself in that niche of good early game junglers, which, you know, the likes of Xin Zhao, of course, you know, Lee Sin, you have a good skirmish now, and with the extra damage that you get to monsters moving up from... I think it's 70% to minions and up to 108% or 103%, excuse
105,
me.
105.
Oh, it's 105. I can't read, apparently, because I have it right in front of me. I'm looking at it. But regardless, it is still just a really good early clear. You get up to your level 3 spike, and with the Draven in bot side, you get a kill lane. If you can get that Draven going for Viper, and Viper of all people is definitely someone you want to start rolling this game.
Yeah, so we see Ryze coming in, something that obviously we got the changes to sustain in lane. He's very good at shoving a wave in, resetting, getting cheated recalls, so kind of makes sense. We've seen a little bit more of him. We saw him twice yesterday as well, picked up. And then the Jax, which is that counter we've seen into the Gwen. Can be really hard to deal with that matchup as the Gwen, but obviously there can be some volatility if ganks start to come in, if you start to get the Gwen ahead. Now, going the second rotation of bans, EDG do start to banning away those AD carries. This is a concern for WE. They heavily invested into the top side. It has kind of left that bot lane out to dry, and up against that Draven from EDG does mean they might be in a bit of a difficult spot. Now, WE, they can opt to ban mid laners here if they want to thin out that pool. They will start off with LeBlanc, another pick that was buffed. Her mana and her W damage was increased, which has made her a pretty solid pick in all honesty. We'll see if WE do up to banner support. You know, maybe something like the Nautilus could be a cause for concern, being that it would really help to set up this bot lane for the Draven.
Yeah, absolutely. I think any kind of hard engage is always going to be a very good kind of setup right there with the Pantheon. So we'll see what they want to end up going for as, no, they go for the Lucian. So again, just kind of putting Xing into a hole of kind of saying, look, the only real option available to you now is either the Jinx, which is incredibly vulnerable in those early few levels, or something like an Ezreal, which is super passive and low-key kind of old-school pseudo-counter. And, you know, the Draven does counter it. So you just have so much upfront damage. Very difficult for the Ezreal to actually trade back on top of you. So we'll see what they end up kind of going for right now. I wouldn't be surprised to maybe even see a Lysandra ban or something like that coming out. But no, the Ahri, excuse me, coming out here as a ban away. You want to try and get rid of those trifecta of mid laners that can stop the Ryze from getting his push.
Yeah, so you have choices here with EDG. You could, as I was going to say, you can either go for a mid laner to answer the Ryze, or you could, if there's a support you really want, you could pick that. They go for the Galio, very likely to be mid, but in theory could actually still be flex. So keeping that option open. We haven't seen too much Galio support, but it is definitely playable and does offer that. Now, WE, considering their options in what they want to respond with, thinking of potentially going for something that outranges the Draven, Jinx and Senna being hovered over. Basically want to keep the Draven away from yourself and try and play defensive. And now for Kedaya, you have to blind in this situation. Chances are it's going to be a Galio mid, so picking something that can hopefully keep your Jinx safe, disrupt the engage from EDG, but also, you know, potentially even offering an engage for the team when it comes to those team fights.
Yeah, and of course you have got the roam potential, kind of almost an Avengers style entrance coming out here from EDG with the Pantheon and the Galio being able to kind of jump around the map with those semi-globals. So you will get the Braum, good disengage available to them, but what do they want to try and see if they kind of go for it? I will say that the Rakan is a decent engage, but honestly, this is kind of basically saying to the side, look, yes, we've got the Jax for that side lane pressure, but this is all on Viper. Viper is going to be the focus here from EDG, and they're going to look to try and feed him as many kills they physically can.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like they have such fantastic tools to do so. Rakan makes a lot of sense here. It's a good matchup in a Braum. It's very hard for Braum to ever stack up the passive in Rakan because you can go in, then go out again. So Meiko picking for the matchup, but also like you provide that primary engage. If you ult in as the Rakan, you can lock down the Jinx or the Ryze for long enough that the Galio can ult on top, the Pantheon can fall in. And I feel like this is going to be so hard for WE to play because, look, they have a scaling top lane. They have a scaling bot lane. But in honesty, the top lane matchup isn't necessarily going to go well if the Jax gets ahead. The Jax will outscale you in the side lane. And the bot lane, if you have the Galio and the Pantheon coming down, you're just going to get trounced, if I'm going to be real. You're going to get squished.
Yeah, again, it comes back to that problem I mentioned, is that the Jinx, with the bans in AD carry, you're kind of basically forcing them into something like the Jinx, which is just so vulnerable on those first few levels, even up to probably, honestly, about level 6, 7, even then. At that point, then you start to kick up an item or two, then you're starting to be a bit more safer. But the Draven, if he's able to get a kill or two before then, you're just never going to be able to try to take a fight here as Xing. So curious to see now how WE try and honestly just nullify this bot side, because it is feeling like it's going to be on Shanks to try and get his push and work around the map, try and get bot lane safe, or even just a cover for what EDG might be throwing at them.
Yeah, there is one thing to say is a reason we've seen Galio quite a bit less than we saw in Spring, for example, when RNG were running amok with it, is Predator did get nerfed. It now gives less movement speed early and like a bit more later. So as a result, one of the things Galio always used to do during Spring, especially up against things like the Ryze, where you wouldn't have prio mid, and you would just cheat and pop Predator, and you would still get to the fight, often before the Ryze would, but bare minimum, like, you'd be able to match the roam, right? Because Predator's a little bit slower, it's not as good in the early game, we might see windows where W can punish that. If you do have prio, and the Galio tries the match, he might miss out on more, he might be later to the play, and so you're able to make it work before he gets there. Ultimately, more windows available for WE to try and capitalize on, and man, do they need to.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to jump straight onto the Rift as Viper already moving himself into WE. They're well aware. They're well aware that the level 1, even with a Braum, is not in their favor. With a Pantheon, a Draven, and a Galio, you do not have the priority there. So they're going to put that award, back themselves away, take that information as best they can, and just try and move back out onto the map. And I do love kind of, you know, seeing these new kind of setups. We are seeing a lot more lethal tempo coming out for the AD carries right now. Xing and Viper both taking it out. And it does very much feel like one of those kind of, if you feel confident to keep your positioning correct, quote unquote, you can just continue to put yourself in a good position. So getting that extra bit of range is always going to be so, so valuable. And even something like the Jax can benefit from it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so nice early on picks like the Jax, because you get so much attack speed in the early trades. And then obviously, even later, like Jax doesn't build that much attack speed. You obviously get a lot of his stacking from your passive, but it basically just means you can focus more on building things like ability haste is pretty huge for Jax. You often see Divine Sundra into Frozen Heart. Even when I've seen like Jaxes into AP lanes, they'll end up going there just because it means they get much shorter cooldowns. They can play around that more frequently. Oh, we do see a heavy all in.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's an ignite, and I don't think you win that, Flandre, without the healing of the potions doing their maximum job. You don't really have a great time with theirs. We can see now Xing getting aggressed on already, but should only take a pretty heavy trade. As I say, that's a heavy load that's been taken. That's like 3 auto attacks from the Draven, and this is the problem. When you get this early priority, and all of a sudden you don't have the chances of picking something that could be a lot more safe or a lot more aggressive, you're just left sitting in a hole kind of waiting for this wave to crash into you.
Yeah, it's a really rough spot. And the problem with the Braum is that until you get your level 2, until you get your Unbreakable, you can't really do anything to block the Draven, right? All you can do is try and apply your passive. But Xing was not interested in trading autos there. He was just trying to get out of range as soon as possible, which is the right call. So good move from Meiko and Viper to try and punish there. Flandre takes a tower hot shot here. Has already lost his flash. He's honestly not doing that well. And
he
oh
might
my
die.
lord, it's getting close.
Yeah, he's
not doing too good in this lane.
He needs to be very careful right now. You can see how desperate it is, though, right now. He wants to crash this way, but look at the minimap. You've already got the Wukong coming in. Flandre trying to see if he can trade this one back. Does leap strike out and has got a ward there onto view. As you can see, Junjia kind of shaking his head at his top laner, kind of going, all right, I guess I'll cover you. But now he's in a little bit of an unfavorable trade. Does have to pop up his trying defenses, but Junjia trying to juke them back out. View can flash in with the Q. No, there it is with the E, like you said. View will get themselves first blood. And honestly, that feels like that's Flandre's fault for Junjia going down.
Oh, man, this was so messy. I mean, Flandre making a lot of mistakes. Oh, Scout might have found him.
Looking for him. There's going to be a smite coming down, which is going to help out Scout to take away his prize, but it does give health over to View. But yeah, WE very graciously taking that big overextension on top side and honestly just making it work very well for them.
Yeah, and something to mention as well is that Scout hasn't even gone for the boots early. We often would see boots first on Galio, but because Predator is weakened, and also, I mean, in fairness, Potion's also weaker now as well. So boots 4 pots, not as good of a start. He doesn't have the Predator to get there. So although he does burn the smite and get the scuttle from view, isn't there for the play. And I feel like, honestly, Flandre played that super disrespectfully. Demon able to punish his result, but also Junjia just... I don't know if it's lack of experience on the pick, but the thing with on Pantheon, he has a lot of upfront burst, and he's very good in skirmishes because you have the stun. It allows your teammates to follow up. But in a straight 1v1, you're not going to kill the Wukong from full HP, and the Wukong is really powerful in those extended fights, and it feels like Junjia just completely disrespected that, and then as a result, goes down. And now, Junjia looking for a gank in the top side onto this Gwen, but Demon has kept the wave in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, you can see it. It's not quite crashing, not quite being held. He will end up pushing.
It's going to bounce out now, though.
Yeah.
This is a good timing if he's forced to push forwards. View is nearby, but whether he comes is another story.
Yeah, you can see now. You've got yourself the shield vault to try and get that stun down, but it's a difficult one to do right now. He's not really losing anything with this time he's putting up in top side, but we'll start to in a moment. We do have the call here for Flandre because they really want to go. But Demon, honestly, mad respect here for the Jacks, kind of saying, look, I don't believe that there's no one here. And rightfully so, he's just able to walk himself away. So Junjia just wastes about a minute of his time. Yeah,
so much time wasted to not even get the play. And now you're kind of aware of it. It's very hard for Junjia to find another angle. Like, you want to be able to catch the Gwen off guard. The fact that the Gwen can dash away and Pantheon has no flash means you probably aren't going to be able to just walk in the lane and gank. So Demon should be able to try and push this wave out, especially with Ignite back up and available, bear in mind. Going to make it hard for Flandre to contest. And the gank is negated. So not only does Junjia go down early, also invests a lot of time to fail that first gank. Just not the best start for EDG. But WE, they're vibing.
Yeah, they are vibing. I will say bot lane's going a little bit wayward for them, but it's, again, to be expected given the matchup. The Draven is just going to have constant priority. But like you said, Kedaya will have his Unbreakable to be able to try and stop any real big trades coming out right now. So right now, we've seen the early game. It hasn't gone exceptional for EDG. It's obviously not a million miles away either. It's only that one kill. What do you want to see WE do now that they have this kind of early jungle priority?
Honestly, I feel like they can just keep mitigating plays. As long as they keep track of Junjia, that's the important thing. Oh, bit of an engage coming in will just be a heavy trade. I feel like the main thing is that if you can get to like level 6 first, you can just track the Pantheon, because the main advantage the Pantheon wants to look for is having a numbers advantage with the ultimate. Like, you fly in, you take a 3v2 or 4v2, but if you can match him, the Wukong is so strong in these fights, you can really just look to challenge EDG and shut them down. And particularly playing around that bot lane is so important. Right now, Viper has about a 20 CS lead, just shy of it, and it is starting to get a little bit painful. And if Viper cashes in before he gets shut down, this lane is just going to explode.
Yeah, 160 stacks already. You can see him trying to go in there. I'm going to get the knock up there as Viper is tanking. They're going to get the cleanse coming out from Xing, so he's not going to have that available for this taunt that might be coming out. The wave is still there and still very healthy. They'll find him, but they won't get the cash in. Scout does get that one with the Winds of War. Needs to get himself out, though, because that tower was ramping up. Shanks did roam down with the Realm Warp, but really too little too late.
Yeah, it's not ideal for EDG because Scout took the kill. You saw the Axe didn't quite finish it off the Viper, and then Scout wasn't messing around. He knew with the ult coming in from Shanks, he didn't have time really to wait around for Draven to take the kill, so he just sweeps it up. Still very good for EDG. Xing denied quite a bit, not able to make up the CS discrepancy with this wave. But you see, they just play it very slow. Viper takes aggro and actually has to drop his Axe to reset aggro there. Meiko walks out, lets the Galio come in, and then it's a very early exhaust from Kedaya. But here, if you watch the Axe from Viper come in, just shy of finishing off that Jinx. So as a result, doesn't get that extra gold. Stack still in hand, and still an opportunity for W to shut him down.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing that Scout picks up the first kill, of course. Definitely not a bad thing whatsoever, but it's something that we will be keeping an eye on for those stacks to come out. But it kind of hits a point where you're kind of going, okay, we didn't give away the stacks. It's not that big of a deal. But then it becomes a big deal because don't forget, his ultimate does end up getting extra damage on execute because of the stacks that he has on him. So even though you're not quite getting the stacks over, you might be thinking that's a win. Slowly but surely, if he doesn't die, he is just getting slowly stronger and stronger. So it's a bit of a catch-22. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Eventually, you will get everything piling in on top of you. And we see now Flandre finally taking a good trade into Demon and backing himself away as the priority over Rift Herald does seem to be EDG's next play.
Yeah, which kind of makes sense. You know, we talked a bit at the... Oh, Junjia looking to go in here.
Junjia's not really got anyone else with him. We will see the Whirling Death coming out on top of that one. Cyclone there to try and use this one here, but with the Rakan already in tow, you don't really have the damage to make this one work. Super Mega Death Rocket goes right between the posts, and that's just... honestly, Junjia looked a little bit in from you, but it worked out because he knew he's just stronger.
I love the fact that both AD carries just throw their ults up, and it's kind of like, this is our contribution.
Thank
as
you.
The fight's going on.
The
thing with the Pantheon, so hard to punish, even when you make mistakes like that, because of his E, because it grants you, essentially invulnerability from one direction. And Scout comes in on the Galio, and this Galio is just such a monster in these early skirmishes. AoE torn into the damage, able to find a kill in return, and even force Kedaya's flash. And they will be able to pick up the Herald. Dragon still hasn't been touched. Hextech Drake is honestly fantastic early with the amount of stats it gives. But obviously taking so long, not something they want to prioritize now. And we do get the replay. So Junjia obviously blocks a lot of damage with his E. Does have to flash out, but then it's the Galio coming in. Scout with the big AoE taunt into the burst damage. Just completely obliterates WE's jungler.
Yeah, it's just so difficult for really WE to make something work there. Again, Shanks, yes, he's on the rise, but it takes a long time for the Ryze to ramp up. Eventually, he does become Machine Gun Ryze, eventually towards that level 13, 14, 15 mark, but needs items, needs levels, and needs just time to be able to stack up this tier so he can constantly throw out the abilities. So right now, with the way the game is set up at the moment, it is EDG just taking themselves about 1,000 gold lead with the Rift Herald in pocket. Like you said, the Dragon is live, but with the extra health, and honestly, Hex Drake is so difficult to take solo because of the amount of damage it does as well. You need to be very, very careful if you're trying to take that solo, and that's another reason why we haven't really seen the Dragons being taken solo by junglers anymore. It's actually such a risk. If you get caught, you're probably going to die and give over the Dragons, so just not worth it in the long scheme of things.
Yeah, one of the problems with Hextech Drake as well is that it has the Hextech soul effect, it's just the AoE damage and slow. So even if you take with multiple members, you can all start to drop in HP, especially early, and get chunked out. We do now see they have the prior bot. They're gonna look for this, and since they buffed the Hextech soul, it gives 9 ability haste and 9% attack speed. I did the maths, and across the whole team, so because 5 members get the buff, the gold value is 2,300 for those stats if you were to buy them in the shop. So it's actually pretty significant, especially considering EDG. If you look across the board, the attack speed is good for quite a few members. The ability haste is pretty much good for everyone. So it is actually a pretty substantial boost since we got those changes on 12-14. Can't be ignored. Ooh.
Demon. Oh, Demon! Oh my god, Flandre. That is... honestly, that's just straight up disrespect coming out from Flandre. He is not playing this matchup well at all.
I mean, you see how much dominance he has in the lane, despite the fact, he made some mistakes earlier. The fact he can walk in a tower and solo kill the Gwen shows how powerful it is. But the critical misplay is at this point, I'll tell you exactly when, right? There's a point in this where he should have just said, I am going to die, I don't care. And instead, here, he could have kept going. He tries to leave. Just finish the kill.
Yeah, well, speaking of finishing the kill, we're going to jump straight back in as Xing does die again. They're tower juggling the aggro very nicely, but Scout gets blocked, and Scout gets taken down. But look at these low health bars. They're trying to see if they can round more people out to safety. View, though, is caught between a rock and a hard place. He didn't get the ticket. The conductor kicked him off the train, and Viper, 845 gold on top of the 300. That's 1,000 gold easy in the bank there for EDG. So despite Flandre's best efforts, EDG still coming out on top.
And this is the problem, is it's so easy to secure the cash-ins when you can have Junjia and Scout coming down here. Even though Scout goes down, there's enough force for EDG not only to take the kill for the Draven, but also get the Herald down, get the full turret. Viper's going to be the richest man in the Rift, and by a long margin.
Here we go, round 3. Fight. Demon, though, is looking like he's going to take this one
Lord.
gladly. You can see him just constantly pushing. One more skip and snip, and Flandre is going to have to be forced to flash. But Demon does not want to go too far forward. He knows that there could be a teleport coming in on top of him, so he ends up backing himself away. But let's have a look at this bot lane fight, because again, it's just EDG kind of saying, look, we have the globals, Avengers assemble. Yeah,
and it's the power. The Rakan has the lockdown, which allows the Galio and the Pantheon to get in. Xing does flash away, but ends up going down. Unfortunately, it wasn't for the Draven initially. But even this extended play, WWE just don't have the tools to answer. The Realm Warp comes in and View. I don't know why you didn't go in the Realm Warp. I really have no idea, but it does mean you get this big cash in 845 scene there. And now the Drave. Look at the item disparity between the AD carries. We do have a graphic up, so we can't see it right now. But when it does drop away, it's
too much. It's too much for Twitch. They needed to get rid of it before.
Eclipse plus the better part of an Essence Reaver against, I mean, some components, right? Noon Quiver and Pickaxe for the Jinx. I think it's at the point where, you know, if Viper auto attacks Xing probably has to put like 3 autos in to match the damage. It is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a secondhand market sale versus, you know, like, you know, the high street setup of what we have from EDG. So we'll see now what we want to try and make work here. Looks like top lane's going to be their focus for now, but Junjia has been spotted there as they clear out the wave. Meiko did not get spotted, so Demon at level 11 and has the Rift Maker along with the Ignite. Very difficult, honestly, for them to really make something work here, but with a 3,500 gold lead, EDG, honestly, just keep putting your eggs in the Viper basket. I think Viper is a pretty good AD carry when he has resources. You know, it might be a controversial take, but he's all right at the game.
And I just love the confidence that they brought out the Draven so early in the draft, and they've made this draft that just works to play around it, and now they're being rewarded. Viper, I mean, just the amount of money he's going to have here, it's going to be so hard to deal with him. There's tools from the side of WE, like if Wukong and Gwen can get on top of him, sure. But look, he has just finished an Essence Reaver. So much damage. Obviously, you know, you get the Sheen procs whenever you're using your Q, your W resets when you catch an axe, so it's up basically all the time. But also a really nice thing in the extended team fights is the fact you get mana back from the Essence Reaver actually goes a long way for the Draven. So Viper is in full condition to be joining fights. And that's the thing, is like a lot of AD carries, Jinx is a great example, aren't that relevant in fights to like 3 items. That's the point where they really come online. Viper's ready now.
I mean, this is what I love. I always mention this about the LPL, is that, you know, we always hear this, you know, the what I call the doomsayers of Twitter and Reddit, who kind of turn around and say like, oh, you know, the game's going late, it's going to be hyperscaling, there's going to be no fights, blah, blah, blah. But then you get teams like EDG, you get AD carries like Viper who say, no, if I pick Draven and you try and go late, I'm just going to do this.
Oh my
One
Lord.
auto attack takes out a quarter of his health. How can you go late game if you can't get to the late game?
It's just ridiculous, that amount of damage, like this early on. I feel like there's no one who can just, like, that's the thing, there's no one who can really frontline against this Draven for extended periods. It's going to take such good execution for WE to find this, and ADG just aren't giving them the time of day. They're moving over this Cloud Dragon, and, you know, just going back to the fact we're on 12-14, Cloud Dragon got doubled in its effectiveness. All the other Drakes, it was plus 50%, but the Cloud Dragon got doubled to give 7% out of combat movement speed, 7% slow resistance, and the 7% movement speed, that's actually quite a lot. If you have 350 movement speed, it gives you about 24 out of combat, which is pretty sizable for everyone on the team. Like when you're rotating around the map, when you're moving a setup for objectives, that is a pretty sizable chunk of movement speed to have. Kind of like mini Mobies for everyone in the lineup. So it's pretty nice that EDG have these 2 dragons. It's going to be a Mountain Soul as well. And when WE already lacking in damage, given that extra resistances, 9% armor and MR per dragon, and the soul potentially as well, I feel like WE are going to have to find some way to stop this dragon stacking.
And I mean, right now, it does feel like EDG are taking full advantage of 12-14 in a very holistic sense, because they've gotten the 2 Rift Heralds, they've gotten the first 2 dragons, getting those 4, you know, global objectives so early on, and also just like, you know, exclusively to yourself is just so huge. You can see it previously, if you lost the first 4 objectives, maybe a 1,000, 2,000 gold lead. Wasn't that big of a deal. Now it's a 4,000 gold lead, because you get more local gold from the Rift Heralds, you get more stats. It's probably honestly equal to about a 6,000 gold lead in actual raw stats that you can't see. So this is where, you know, EDG are going to be becoming a much bigger issue for WE, and honestly it feels great, because we talked about how we wanted EDG to look coming into this game. I'll be honest, Flandre has been the only real question mark coming into this. Junjia had a bit of a shaky start, but after that he's been making the right calls, and everyone else has been doing their job.
Yeah, everyone's been working well as a unit, and yeah, you know, criticism for Junjia, definitely well-founded, Flandre as well. But they found the momentum in this one and are looking to continue it from here on out. They have the second Herald, and I know we're talking endlessly about this new patch, but it's day 2 of the new patch. Of course, we're going to bring it up.
And we're the only region.
Yeah,
only major region.
75% extra health. So super tanky, super good for pushes. And I expect to see EDG probably using it to take out that tier 1 mid, and maybe the tier 2 as well, if they have enough pressure. You can see EDG moving in here to try and steal away this red, and there's not much WE can do.
No, there really isn't. And look at Viper. He's just moving forward. He's a full item ahead of his counterpart. And the only real person I can see, kind of, as you said, going into him is going to be Demon alongside View, maybe getting down the needlework with the Cyclone. Honestly, I feel like you need a Rune Prison in there as well, just to make sure he doesn't move. But now we're going to see Shelly with all of her HP. She went to the gym. She buffed. She looking pretty good. As we're going to see them now try and make this one work for themselves. As View tries to get on top of Viper, but Viper's just too big right now. Doesn't quite land the Whirling Death, but it's Junjia to clean up house. You can see Flandre thinking about flashing over that wall to maybe land a counter-strike, but the rest of WE is going to have to back away. And honestly, there's not really a lot WE can do. They tried a lot, but they need the Gwen there as well.
Yeah, I feel like if they had a TP ward behind them and Demon could come in, layer the ult on top of the Wukong ult, that's maybe where you see the angle. Oh, dive coming forwards.
Whoa! Okay, Junjia, that was a little bit unrealistic of you as Meiko tries to help out his jungler. Now Viper is going to be forced to cleanse, and we can see now they're trying to kill him off, but a great saving play here from the ultimate of the Galio. They're going to land the taunt onto 2 and pick up 2 as well. That's a good play coming out from Scout. We highlighted this guy coming into today, and these are the kind of plays he does to save his team.
Yeah, managed to turn it around. Bit of an overstep from WE and a good punish from EDG, but definitely feels like certain 2 members of the team on EDG are, well, one of them's on a different page, and Flandre's just been doing his own thing. But Junjia,
we're not pointing fingers.
Yeah, I mean, just way too deep. I think he's kind of in the mindset of, you know, when Pantheon was first reworked and you could block tower hits with your E, it kind of feels like he's in that mindset. But since that changed, obviously you can't block tower hits. A big reason why we saw Pantheon support disappear. And here, like, sure, his E stops him take damage from the champions, but he actually gets rooted, and then the tower hits as well just takes him out. And here, WE just overstep a bit. The Galio is perfect. And then Flandre comes in with his big AoE stun. We get the follow-up. It's just very well executed from EDG on the punish.
Yeah, it feels like Flandre and Junjia are just like high-fiving out, like, you know, who needs to be the one who goes for the crazy play. That time it was Junjia. This time now it will be maybe Flandre as he just pick himself up a Black Cleaver. But you threw everything at Viper. And I will say, though, he does not have summoners for this next fight. And honestly, as W, you got to fight this. This is probably the last moment you have. But that's a 3-item Draven. That is a rapid-fire cannon now onto Draven. Viper is just going to be able to hit you from so far back. How are you going to get on top of him?
Yeah, you can actually play for poke with a rapid fire here, because as soon as the proc is up and available, Viper could just launch an axe. If it hits someone like Xing, it's honestly going to do at least 25% of his health, maybe even more. So don't find an angle ready for it there, apart from an axe onto Kedaya. But now WE at least have control over the area because Scout was late to the play, and it's up to EDG to force their way in. They don't need this dragon, but the amount of stats it gives, you definitely don't want to give over free. And very quickly, WE have to respect the pressure from EDG and give up presence on the dragon. It's 11,000 HP. You can see those HP buffs coming in, and WE don't even opt to fight it. This is a pretty big hit. Like, this dragon, 9% armor and MR for things like the Jax. I mean, even if Draven picks up a defensive item with just his base stats, makes quite a bit of a difference.
I mean, this is the issue we see a lot with our lower, you know, kind of player or tabled teams, is that if you're not willing to fight, as we do have a pause coming out right now, but if you're not willing to fight, you're just going to die a death of 1,000 cuts. It's something I always praise some of our top teams. You look at the likes of V5, RNG, Top Esports, you know, they always will go for the fight. Even, you know, better example, probably the perfect example is JDG. They will always go for every and all fight that they feel like they have to, because yes, it might not be the highest percentage play right now, but that percentage is only going to get smaller and smaller as the game goes on.
And that's the thing, is like, I feel like the highest percentage play is such a good term for describing, like, let's say you're in a game where you have like a 5% chance of winning, just as a random example, and you see a play, it's like, if you start Baron right now, it's probably going to fail 4 out of 5 times. It's got a 20% chance of working. That is still significantly better than your chances in the game. And obviously the numbers are arbitrary, they're not really applicable, but the whole point is you have to pick your window. And that is my question for WE. What is the window going to be? You opted out of the third dragon, you didn't think it was the best fight for you, or you didn't also think it was necessary, which, you know, to an extent, you don't need to deny the third dragon. The fourth is a more important one, but it just mounts up the pressure, and WE have to find a moment at some point to pounce, to try and punish, to try and get their way back into this game. And the problem is, you know, 12-14, the dragons are buffed. So, you know, it's 50% more armor and MR than you would have had on 12-13, 50% more attack speed and ability haste from that Hex Tech dragon as well. So not only is it the fact that, you know, you're obviously going up against the fact that they might have the Mountain Soul, EDG are stronger than they would be on the previous patches. Which is why, like, for example, Doinby, I saw him commenting on 12-14, said he felt like this patch was even more snowbally. Not just the laning differences, because of health pots being nerfed and stuff, allowing you to punish laners more effectively, but also the fact that, you know, if you get a lead with things like these dragons, it's just giving you more power. So EDG have a substantial gold lead, substantial power lead, and WE need to find a way back in.
Well, that's the thing. You talk about the power inside. Like, you know, before that dragon is taken, you only, quote unquote, only have 7% slow resistance and out of combat move speed, which is a lot, but, you know, whatever. And then you obviously have the Hex Strike as well, which is giving you 9% attack speed and 9 ability haste. But then you're adding those stats to 9% bonus armor and minor resistance. And we're getting to a point in the game where people are picking up their 3rd and 4th items. People are looking to try and get those little extra resistances, those little small little moments that will get them the edge in this game. And it's going to become harder. Like, think about it, that Zhonya's, as a pure random example, has more effectiveness now because you have that Mountain Drake. So EDG very comfortable with this game. It is only 11 kills so far in this game, 7-4 in favor of EDG, but 6,000 gold lead and probably honestly another 4,000 in stats alone. So this game is just running away from WE. Like you said, it's just a snowball's chance in hell for WE. They need to try and just make something happen.
Yeah, I feel like the fact it's 9% is so insane, in all honesty. Like, yeah, you look at the fact that, like, even champions who don't have that much, you know, resistances built will have just, like, so much, because of the durability change as well. Like, base resistances, based MR and armor are up, and so it does make a pretty massive difference. Now, Junjia looking.
Junjia is looking because he's got the support and help of the rest of his team. View does get his decoy almost killed as the rest of EDG find themselves up and towards this top side, but they're looking for the tower. They're going to be honestly looking for the dragon, or sorry, not the dragon, the Baron at this stage as well. So they have total control, and honestly, it does feel like this is EDG's games to lose. I think WE are going to maybe hope and pray they got scaling, but again, that's a Jax. It's not exactly something you can, you know, take in the side lane for the Gwen to just to happily take in a 1v1.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they can't really lead on the side lane later. That's not really going to work that well. But one thing to say is that play kind of did turn out positively for WE because, I mean, not positively, but it could have been worse. It's kind of what I'm trying to hit on.
Not
the goal
as
for EDG
negative.
was to kill View. And actually, the W for Meiko, I think he got interrupted by the knockup from the Cyclone. If View dies, they just start Baron. It's that simple. So the fact that he survives, yes, they get the tower, but they probably would have got that anyway. But they don't manage to pick up a window to go for Baron. And it gives WE a bit more opportunity, a bit more time. Xing is approaching the 2nd item. We've seen Shanks has got 2 items, Demon as well. It's still a deficit compared to EDG, but something to bear in mind is like a lot of the goal difference is on Viper, right? If you kill Viper, you wipe a big portion of that gold off the map, at least for that fight. The hope is that you don't invest so much that you don't have anything left for the rest of the fight, but like, bear in mind, like, he has a whole item lead. Items often, you know, costing like 3,000 gold. Like, I think Essence Reaver is actually around 3,000 anyway. And he's just picked up a BF as well. The gold lead's only 7,000, so outside of him, it's like little bits here and there. But if they do kill Viper, that will be the win con for the side of WEs. Just kill the Draven, deal with the consequences after.
Yeah, kill the Draven and figure out after that what you do next. It's kind of do step 1, then refer to step 2 after you've done step 1. So we'll see what they're able to kind of do right now. You can see Viper's barreling towards an Infinity Edge, you would imagine, as his next side. Maybe a Bloodthirster, actually. Could be going for a BT instead, just to keep himself a little bit of extra survivability, getting that extra bit of overheal and stuff like that. But we'll see what he ends up wanting to go for. 1 minute and 45 seconds till the Dragon Soul does spawn. You can see EDG. They don't need to flip this at Baron, to be perfectly honest. They can just maintain control, maintain the air of illusion for WE to saying, look, you got to continuously spend time on this top side, because if you don't, we're just going to take the Baron anyway, unless, you know, and then when the Dragon comes around, they just get it regardless because there's no control for WE. Yeah,
they just keep the threat up, and that's the thing is that, you know, EDG don't really want to give away the next Dragon over, but if WE overcommit to it, they can just rush the Baron down. And obviously that will give them so much power, so much gold. For now, they have their vision heavily invested there. I expect they'll start moving down towards the Dragon area and setting up their vision there as it's coming up in a minute 10. And we kind of have to think about how WE want to play this if they want to come on ahead. Because I think there's like so many different variations of how this fight can go. where EDG just win. One of them is Viper just kills Shake there. But I think ultimately you kind of need to make Viper's life difficult. Because the thing with the Draven is, yes, he has flash. But if you have a scenario where Demon is flanking, maybe from a TP, or maybe from like a Realm Warp, while the Wukong has ulted you, if Gwen can hit the, like, you know, maybe the third part of the ultimate onto the Draven, that is like a potential avenue in which you could take to take him down. So I feel like they need to try and hunt for these flank angles. I feel like if they front to back, they just lose no matter what. And unfortunately, they don't have vision in the area. Oh, look at the engage.
They got an engage onto view, and you can see the Whirling Death coming out. But there's going to be Flandre on the backside here, trying to get out the Xing, but he's been stunned up. They're going to have to use the Galio ultimate to try and make sure he stays alive. Eventually, Demon will go down. That's going to be another cash out there for Viper. And as you can see, what was 7,000 gold, now straight up to 9,000, and that's going to be Dragon Soul as well.
Oh, and Viper's still looking here. Does a lot of damage.
Meiko! Oh, not quite a deal there. There's not really the health bars to be trying to execute someone, but it does not matter in the grand scheme of things because they are still getting themselves the soul. They're still getting themselves those yummy stats, and that's still going to be Viper going back a very, very rich man.
Yeah, and I mean, we just saw that Mountain Dragon taken. Viper got 8 armor off that. Just like the dragon itself. And, you know, obviously, presumably got he gets 8 armor from both. So 16 extra armor and the shield going to make him so much harder to take down with already struggling. Ultimately, ADG make a great call here because they force the engage. There's no opportunity for a flank when WE grouped up together. And you do start to see the AoE damage available to WE, right? You start to see the Gwen really shredding some targets up close. You see Xing even doing a decent amount to Flandre with the ult up. But they just don't do enough to take anyone out, unfortunately. And as a result, you know, EDG are the ones who claim victory, although Meiko, sorry, does overstep here and ends up going down for it. But regardless, you can see the WE, the concept of the team fight, like the AoE damage is starting to come together, but now you're dealing with the soul from EDG. It just makes things 10 times harder, and Viper's picked up an infinity edge since that last fight.
Yeah, Viper, I swear to God, if Viper gets one auto attack on Xing, he's dead. That's just a matter of fact at this point in the game because he is so damn big. And we talked about it right at the start of the game, as we can see Kedaya. Yet Unbreakable ain't looking so unbreakable right now. They are going to have the Skyfall come out, or the Starfall, excuse me, coming down to see if they can make something work. But you've already now lost your flash off Kedaya. He's not really in a position to try and walk forward onto this because every time he walks forward, he's going to have to put up his Unbreakable just for one auto attack.
Yeah, he's the only person who can really withstand the damage from Viper, but it's kind of conditional on him having a cooldown. Oh, they're looking.
They are looking. Demon trying to see if he can catch out Viper. Does get himself some immunity, so Viper's just going to have the chickens for the moment. But with the TP coming in here from the backside, flash in from Flandre means they've set up a perfect position for the Galio to finally join this fight. You can see Viper, 1, 2, Uni-Flew. He takes down the Gwen. Demon trying so well to try and make this fight back in WE's favor. But another great engage from Flandre means they're able to clean up house. You can see it all at the end. Viper doesn't pick up a single kill, but Scouts gets himself 3 in the ace.
Yeah, managing a triple kill there. And WE, I think the game plan was to force a TP from Flandre, but they just didn't have the momentum in that fight at all. He even saw Demon use his R3 onto Viper, and he just about broke the Mountain Shield. Wasn't even close. EDG, a pretty commanding lead. The comp made sense. They got Viper ahead, and they're able to finish this one out and push the series to 1-0.
Yep. Only losing 5 kills, not losing a single tower or objective. It was a pretty good game from EDG and exactly what we wanted to see from them. Honestly, this is despite from a couple of happy moments, shall we call them that, you know, in this game, it just felt like it was EDG from start to finish.
Yeah, I like the draft. I think Flandre and Junjia definitely had, as you said, some moments. Not too fond of them, I'll be honest, but altogether they understood how to play the comp, and they played the win con, and it just worked, right? I feel like WE, maybe, you know, if you see something like a Draven come out, you need to do a better job of being able to contest it. They didn't opt to pick AD carry up in the first rotation, allowed bans to come through, and then as a result, it kind of put them in this position where, you know, Jinx Braum couldn't even hold up in the 2v2. As soon as you added the pressure of the Pantheon off the Galio, it just completely fell apart. So WE now gonna have to try and pull this one back going into game 2, and I think starting for the draft is kind of where I'd look.
Yeah, honestly, it did feel like EDG just had their number. EDG just knew exactly how they wanted to play. And like I said, it's apart from Flandre just being very disrespectful in the start, and Junjia having a couple of shaky moments as well, it did just feel inevitable. It felt like the game plan to hard go bot side. We saw so many times once you had that Skyfall alongside the hero's entrance, you just had so little you could do there as a side of WE's bot lane. Like Xing, I don't think played poorly. I just think he didn't have options. I don't think he had many ways of dealing with what was being thrown at him because there was so much CC to be thrown at him. He only has one cleanse. He has to try and go with the taunt, the stun from Pantheon, the counter strike from the Jax, the charm from the Rakan. There's just too much.
Yeah, I think it just became really difficult, especially when the damage falls behind. And there was that one fight where the AoE was there and you kind of saw the potential. I think if you'd gone into the later stage of the game, even in gold, I think there would have been a really good spot to teamfight their way out of that one, but that wasn't the case. And I think that's just like a tale as old as time, where, you know, a team invests in these scaling aspects and just doesn't get them to where they want to be. Shout out to Scout with a 92.3% kill participation, same as Meiko. Kind of shows how the fights were being started between those two and really just being able to shut down any chance of WE surviving.
I mean, you can see Xing, he's so tantalizingly close towards that Infinity Edge. He knows that if he gets there, he has a chance, maybe a chance. But sadly, for WE, EDG had other plans. But yeah, this was a pretty dominant win. I would like to see them maybe kind of clean up a little bit on that top side, but we'll have to wait and see. We're going to send it over to a quick break, and when we return, we'll have picks and bans for game number 2.